Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy, and today we bring you a very special guest. His name is Ryan Cramer, and he's the head of marketing and growth at First Choice Shipping, which is actually one of the leaders when it comes in global expansion in Amazon and e-commerce. So I think I can have a better person today to actually talk about that, which is growing globally. And I know for all Amazon sellers out there, that's always a thought we have in our mind. It would be nice to hear your take, your tips, and all of that, right? So I think before we touch on that, for sure, I want to welcome you to the show, give you thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you, Ryan. How are you
Yeah,
doing
of
today?
course. Yeah, I'm doing good. I know we were talking pre-show. Just there's so much going on in this world, and I
Yeah.
feel like what we're recording this at the beginning part of Q3.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just so much data and analyzing just post Prime Day and all these other potential new Prime Day, uh,
I
all
know.
these things coming up soon. So there's a lot to be doing right now. But I'm
I
glad to be
know.
here.
Yeah, I think the Amazon space is funny. Like every single day I wake up, it's like, what is gonna happen today? Every single day is a new thing, it's a new
I thought
challenge.
yeah, I thought today was like Amazon purchased Roomba or something like that, and then I started thinking crazy thoughts and ideas of like, great, now Amazon's gonna ask me while it's vacuuming if I want to buy
I
a
know.
set of pins or something. Like, it's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to see all those things come. So now, before we start into today's topic, which I think is going to be very interesting, for sure I want to give you a couple of minutes just to learn more about Ryan. I mean, you're already famous. I know that. I mean, your podcast is huge. Your podcast had like 100 plus episodes and a lot of amazing people in there. But still, I think it would be valuable just to give a quick intro about how you jump into the e-commerce space, Amazon specifically, and how you then landed into First Choice Shipping
Yeah,
where you're working right now. Yeah.
well, I appreciate that. Those are very kind words. Don't think I'm
Mm.
famous, but I think I'm dedicated. I say dedicated, which is kind of the story of me. So yeah, how I got into e-commerce, that's a funny story. So my first job out of university back in 2012. So I've been kind of on this digital marketing exploration, if you will, since then. My first job was actually in the newspaper industry. So I was in charge of selling ads
Mm.
and physical prints, magazines, doing it in back then it was like monster.com. LinkedIn wasn't that big.
Yeah.
There's so many cool mediums. You were selling display ads online. So that's where I got my really taste of marketing on a footprint level. It was all new business. So my job was to help find out from customers, what their challenges were, and then new business development. So I toiled. I went through a bunch of different things. Even before that, I was in sales and marketing. I sold like
Hmm.
Cutco cutlery, which is knives and silverware and things like that,
Okay.
and was really good at it. So I thought this would be a natural next medium. Getting good at sales. But I was laid off. It was months before I was supposed to get married. My now wife and fiance at the time didn't have a job, and we were just kind of like, what do we do? She luckily got a job about a month later in Richmond, Virginia, which
Okay.
is not where I'm from. It's I grew up in the Midwest here in Indiana. I'm actually back here now, but I didn't have a job and neither did she, so we decided to go out there. I was searching for a couple months, and at that juncture, had found an opportunity with the wholesaler and manufacturer for a home gift garden company called Evergreen Enterprises,
Okay.
which was really cool because they're the number one seller on Amazon actually right now
I
for
see.
garden flags. Very weird niche.
Yeah.
Something that's really kind of funny. And this was I want to say 2014 when we first started this. So
The
FBA
good
wasn't
times. Yeah.
FBA wasn't really like, it was starting to take off. It was still people are trying to figure out, but you had wholesale manufacturers who were selling to retail stores trying to
Hmm.
figure out e-commerce. So I actually was on the D2C side of business, under their brands. They had 10,000 SKUs, so I had this
Wow.
plethora of product that was tried and true. People were buying. We had the inventory. All I had to do was just figure out how to sell it.
Mm.
They took a chance on me. I had no background in e-commerce experience, but I think that's no one has that
Yeah.
experience when you first started, right?
Hmm.
So fast forward, I actually was in charge of the direct to consumer, like growth marketing side, and that would have been affiliate marketing, any sort of externalized marketing, third party wise. driving influencers, deal sites, blogs back to our website to make a purchase. So I found so many different ways to stand out. It was a 0 revenue channel, and it grew to 6 figures my first year. And I thought, all right, I think that there's something really cool to this. Kind of figure out what works, seasonality products, make sure we have inventory, make sure my numbers are good and I'm not losing money. You kind of get this groundwork, if you will. So fast forward, next year is growing to 7 figures. It was really well, working with so many different companies. And that's kind of where I stood out to our CEO, who wanted me to have meetings with him. I would crashed our website multiple times because we would drive promotions before Black Friday. And but year after year, I was crashing our websites because of the traffic. And it was really fun and cool, and kind of getting to learn the weeds there. So fast forward a couple of years, I took time away, moved back to the Midwest. I actually got back into the Amazon ecom ecosystem through 𝐃𝐎𝐍'𝐲, if you know Casey. He started Viral Launch.
A good friend, yeah,
absolutely. So Casey is here in Indianapolis, or was here in Indianapolis. He they were growing Viral Launch, then needed a partnership / affiliate marketing, and told him my experience, and got to jump over with him and work with him for about a year. Awesome. A fantastic team. And then through some other very happenstantial circumstances, got introduced to, through partnerships and networking, introduced to awesome companies. They asked me if to leave Viral Launch and work for an international fintech company called Ping Pong Payments. I was there the last 2.5 years or so. And another fantastic, cool opportunity. I think I want to challenge. Like, that's kind of the roadmap of if I had to summarize my background. I jokingly tell people I'm playing e-commerce bingo. It's whenever you're calling my name and it's a different challenge, that's where I want to kind of tackle. But
that's great.
I'm right now here at First Choice Shipping, been here for a couple of months now, and I couldn't be happier. I think the logistics and international growth side of things is super fascinating. I think it's the challenge that everyone's trying to figure out, and there's not a lot of support and education in the space. So that's kind of why I'm here today.
That's awesome. I actually love the fact that you've been almost in every single sector in the Amazon space. I mean, you were with Viral Launch basically on the software side of things. They were Ping Pong, you were on the payment provider. Now with First Choice Shipping, logistics, you're learning every single section of the game, which is awesome. I think
PPC is fun. That's probably the only major tackling spot that I don't have yet, but there's too many fantastic people out there. But I don't know about that, but there's too many fantastic people that I totally point to and tell them that they have the pulse, and I have the background and everything else. So it's exciting. Haven't sold on Amazon, but I think this space is cool, Vincenzo. Like, I know I'm not interviewing you. It's so cool because when people say, like, what's your background, it stems from so many different ways as sellers of, hey, we're selling a brick and mortar. It comes from so many different perspectives, which is why I think it's fascinating. You don't have to necessarily know it, but if you're in it, you learn and you grow, and you're constantly developing and talking to people. You get a sense of, of course, like, I know what it's like to go through because you're working with customers. You're on the service provider side, which is so unique and different than any other seller's perspective. But of course, like, you get to see all these different problems at once. It's overwhelming, but you get to kind of work through it with them. So that's the cool side.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually come from an engineering background. For me, it's all about problem solving. So it's my daily thing for sure. Finding issues, solving them. That's why I love this area of the business for sure. Now, I think for sure, now slowly jump into today's topic. Now that you are part of First Choice Shipping, that's one of the leaders when it comes to global expansion. On a daily basis, you on conversations, seeing strategies and different topics when it comes to this, how to help Amazon sellers actually expand internationally, right? So I would like to use that as a starting point to open the conversation around this topic, because I think a global expansion is definitely a must nowadays if you want to keep growing your business on Amazon. I think those days of just selling on a single marketplace are slowly coming to an end because competition is becoming more severe. If you don't diversify, it's becoming each day more dangerous. So I would like to hear your take on this. What you think overall to start around global expansion for Amazon sellers?
Yeah, so part of why I jumped into kind of this global expansion I'm just talking, I think we were talking about this beforehand. Just expansion in general is just, it's that next, it's something that people want to get to as an entrepreneur first and foremost. So no one wants to stay stagnant. There's always opportunity for growth. And why I jumped into the space is because I felt like not just a lack of knowledge, but a lack of how to navigate the waters in terms of expanding your brain, not just in one marketplace, but into multiple marketplaces or even outside of Amazon. I think that there's a lot of people who are starting to read the tea leaves, especially back in 2020 when everything went through lockdowns. Everyone was trying to figure out, hey, if I can get my inventory into Amazon, what do I do? Amazon's fantastic, or if it's just in one marketplace, it's going great when things are all perfect. But as we all know, if there's suspensions, if there's any sort of issues with inventory, if I don't have multiple different lanes to help support my brand, then that brand can potentially be in trouble and go out of business, or it'd be very costly to kind of right those wrongs and ride the waves, if you will. So kind of when I joined here, it's been fascinating to just in the short time talk to customers, see what their problems and issues are. But a lot of what education and the data and I always say follow the data, kind of taking it from my time back at Viral Launches. A lot of the top even Amazon sellers as of even 2021, when you look at the data, the top 500 in the US, for example, half of those people are not even selling in a different marketplace, which is very surprising to me and very, very confusing, but also surprising. So you start to ask a question, why? Everyone talks about competition in the US, which is very true. It's the #1 marketplace, but you see the growth and expansion of Amazon, where their footprint is. And if you could ask us probably back in 2020, and you're going to look forward here in the next 5 years or so, from then into where Amazon's going, what's kind of their plan? Well, it's growing in different marketplaces around the world. There's only so many eyeballs in the United States. We only have so much money. It's a lot. We like our stuff. So, but you can't. But when competition is so tough and exhausting, I would say, where are you going to continue to grow and find?
You reach a plateau, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. You might reach a plateau, right? But if I'm a #1 seller, and this is the same thing I've talked with aggregators before, is when you're a #1 seller and you buy a #1 seller, there's only one way you can go: across or down. I would say 2 ways: across or down. You can't get better than the #1 seller.
Yeah, for
sure. That's a little scary. But when you're talking about growing on your own channel, like a D2C, which is really exciting to do, different challenge, but it's also necessary for a lot of people. And there's also other marketplaces and eyeballs around the world, which is part of why, it's not as prominent right now, but doesn't mean in 2 or 3 years from now, we could be talking about Japan as one of the hottest, and it's #2 marketplace right now. It's already surpassed Germany and the UK in terms of visits and eyeballs, but continued growth in other markets are coming. Belgium was just announced as another marketplace that's going to be allowing sellers here at the end of 2022. It's going to keep growing.
Big things are coming. Yeah, 100%. I think, I totally agree. I think global expansion is a must. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't consider it is because they are scared of all the things that come with it, especially when you start touching on everything that has to do with compliance, VAT, taxes, don't have the right partner by their side to deal with the shipping, logistics, and all of that. And I think that's one of the main concerns when they want to take the decision to expand internationally. Now, I would like to hear what is your take in terms of what is usually the first steps that Amazon sellers should start considering if they want to grow international. I mean, what is usually the first area they should start, like in cleaning in house, to start building a foundation to jump international? Because I think I have also seen the opposite of people that they jump like crazy across all the different countries and marketplaces. They take all the boxes in FBA, Pan-European, all the programs, and then they can handle it. So, what is your take on this, and what is your advice usually?
That's a good question. And just like any good person in the space, they're always going to say it depends. So the #1 indicator that we see and that people always see, we're lucky enough to be Amazon's the global sales team's #1 go-to resource when they have all the data and resource. And this is kind of the cool thing for when people are talking to us is Amazon has the data. They know when sales are going well, and you as an entrepreneur know, hey, there's growth, there's opportunity. I feel control over my marketplace. Now, no one can tell you exactly like what that feels like. If it's, hey, year-over-year sales are consistent in growth, if that's your inventory, your supply chain is unlocked. I can't personally tell you that because you're your own entrepreneur and you know your business the best. But what we tell people is that when you do feel comfortable and you do feel like you want to take that next step, there's this inclination of what I call half stepping or baby stepping into different markets to kind of test and see, oh yeah, of course, I want to make sure that that's an opportunity. So what people typically do is Amazon's going to poke you probably quite a bit that says, hey, you've been successful here in market in the United States or even in Germany, wherever you start out, they're going to tell you and say, you can do really well in these markets because category that what you're selling in, it makes a lot of sense for you to try to open this up into these countries. So they'll assist you in pointing in that direction, which is a great resource to have. They're not, of course, they want you to sell more. They want
to make more money.
Right. And if you think about it, like Amazon wants to make more money, they're gonna push you into, hey, of course you want to grow and expand. You make more money, they make more money, everyone wins. So it's almost a indicator that people brush off, but you should listen to that. So if they're going to tell you that you're ready, that might be a good indication to start listening and doing your research. So international expansion, in terms of why people aren't doing it, again, it's kind of confusing, but I think people have to relearn different marketplaces, which is true. You have to do certain things for certain countries, but that's why service providers like us exist. With translations, there's agencies that help out in terms of different capacities. But I think the number one issue a lot of people think is inventory, and they have to figure out, all right, well, if I have my United States or US or whatever marketplace I'm selling in inventory figured out, I have to double that now because I'm going to a whole different market. No, that's not the case. Like I'm not telling you to say, hey, you know that $100,000 investment in inventory you're making, make that 200 and then put that into Canada. I'm not saying that. I think that people understand what's worth it in terms of time, resources, and inventory and money is that at scale and what each market dictates is what success you can start to add up over time. And when you look at your yearly books and say, wow, Canada brought me 15%, UK brought me an additional 5% revenue, Germany was another 3%, Japan was 2%. Now all of a sudden I look like over 20, close to 25% growth all of a sudden for all these additional marketplaces I'm selling in. Now all of a sudden I start to look like this was the right choice. This is the right way to grow. Let's invest in those opportunities even further. So as we start to paint the picture and you start to educate and you help people as an extension of it and say, no, you're no longer on your own. We have the resources to help you get through any sort of compliance issue, any sort of tariffs, figuring out taxes. No one likes to pay taxes. Like that's first and foremost. But if you're paying more taxes, guess what? You're making more money. But I think a lot of people just don't want to have to deal with the headache of setting up the numbers, which is why, people like us exist and education exists. So we're getting there, I think.
That's
starting to break down those barriers.
I think all the things that you say are very true. I think all those mixed signals are for sure a starting point when it comes to expanding internationally. But at the same time, I think it's also a two-step decision. And what I mean by this is that I think the first decision is first looking at your data, looking the signals and making the decision. But I think the second step must be for sure having a strategy. And what do I mean by this? I think for sure there are specific marketplaces that your product is going to behave better than others because there's going to be cultural barriers, language, behaviors in certain communities. And I think that's very important to highlight. However, there's also other things besides that we need to consider. That is, besides US, the next marketplace that usually I would advise is UK and Germany, right?
Right.
But I would like to also hear your taking here because maybe you don't think that's the case, or you maybe recommend other marketplaces. What is usually the options when somebody comes to you and say, Ryan, what is the next step after US? Because I don't know if I should go to UK or Germany or whichever, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know first I want to make a quick sign out and say also when you don't want to get distracted too, because it is important to make sure that you're not stretched too thin. I can't emphasize that enough. The data will tell you what you're ready for, and we want you to make a good calculated approach on what is the smart next best decision. So I call it analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. I'll switch it up. Is that there's so many different marketplaces around the world. There's hundreds of marketplaces in every country around the world globally. It can be exhausting to think about. I want to be everywhere. I'm not telling people to be everywhere. I want people to follow data and help them get to the marketplaces that make sense. So the one that we typically point people through is through Amazon because it's the easiest one. People are familiar with the ecosystem, has a great support network, logistics, supply chain. Anyways, so when the question that you had asked before in terms of where do we tell people to grow after the United States, surprisingly enough, we see the most growth. And again, this is data that anyone can pull from. The most growth right now, and as of 2022, is actually happening in the United States to Canada. Canada, for one reason or not, is actually pulling in a lot more inventory from the United States. A lot of sellers are getting in there. First and foremost, as a seller, you can have a unified account. So you don't have to set up technically a brand new account. You can have it. You can sell it in your Seller Central account. You can sell it through in North America. So United States, Canada, Mexico. You could sell on all those through your own account. So that's first and foremost why a lot of people, I think, look at Canada, believe it or not, as an easier stepping stone instead of UK. But what we're actually seeing right now, where the major growths are, is actually Europe coming into the United States. So contrary to popular belief, people would think it would be the opposite way. We've asked ourselves internally. I think it's a lot of questions like, there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of people in different countries worldwide trying to get into the United States. Why is this all of a sudden, especially Europe? I think that's the case because the dollar and the euro are finally equal. If you're talking about international expansion, I'm going to pull my fintech cap on right now. The euro used to be weaker than the dollar. So when you were selling in the United States and exchanging that dollar back to the euro, I wasn't making the weight of the dollar was not
we're losing 15-20%.
Right, you were losing 20%. So every dollar I sold, you were getting 80 pence or whatever the exchange is back in euro. Maybe it's cents. Yeah, I think it is for euro. So again, math works out and math doesn't lie. So people were making less money from Europe if they were a seller based in Europe selling in the United States. But now that it's equal, now all of a sudden, if I take that, hey, it was a 20% negative, now it's even. It's almost like a positive, like I grew 20%. My money now has more weight all of a sudden in the United States market. So we think that there's a lot of growth opportunities and sellers looking to go from US or from overseas into the US because of that natural progression. But marketplaces that we're seeing growth on, I would say top 5 would be US to Canada. I would say also US to France. Great Britain obviously would be like 2. France is actually surprising, but Japan more recently than not
Japan is skyrocketed.
Very much an increase. So sellers aren't taking Japan lightly. We're seeing pallets being shipped over there. We're seeing lots of goods that are, a lot of inventory being shipped to Japan. So a lot of people are really invested in one of the more, if you're going to talk about financial regulations, that's one of the trickier ones in terms of.
It's very tricky. I know the filter to figure it out is high. That's why I think a lot of people are scared to go to Japan.
Well, especially if you are I call it if it's in your body or on your body. So like a supplement or vitamin or a cosmetic or anything.
If it's supplement, oh my god. Yeah.
You probably aren't looking at Japan very closely, to be honest. But because of all those regulations, a lot of people are, that's a good thing too. And a lot of people are scared because of all these tests. But guess what? If you get through that, the marketplace.
It's a filter.
It's a filter. And a lot of people know that because if you're half stepping there, again, it might not be worth it. But if you're really dedicated and you have a team that knows what they're doing to support
it's a matter of time.
You get through it. Japanese marketplace knows, hey, they must be serious if they went through all of our regulations.
That's right.
Guess what? You're a trusted brand in that marketplace all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a look at it half full, put in the work, you can reap the benefits sometimes. So I
totally agree. I think these marketplaces, I think they're the best because those are the marketplaces that you're not gonna get knocked out by a cheap replica from China or something like that. because there is heavy regulations when it comes to selling specific products. So if you do the paperwork correctly, you remove like 50-60% of the competition straight away.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome.
When if I'm complaining all the time about competition and I'm afraid that people rip me off, and I can get into a marketplace where I'm just gonna filter people out for laziness, maybe.
That's
hey,
right.
that sounds like a cheap and easy way to get rid of competition. And again, I know I'm very much sunshine and rainbows, this kind of topic, but it is the truth in the fact of the matter of that people know what they're doing. I think people just, time is such a valuable commodity in this space. It's impossible to say, oh yeah, go and learn about Japan's marketplace by yourself. Like that's a whole different course. That's a whole different
language,
different language, different seller mentality. Hey, they're buying more mobile instead of desktop. So how do I filter everything? What stands out? What do they care about? It's all color. It's all, it's overcrowding things. It's completely different messaging than clean, less color, very generic US economy. So again, that's what's so cool about it, is that you can, as a brand globally, every Fortune 500 company knows this too. I have to represent either my content or my product differently in each marketplace, which is why it's such a culture shock. If I'm in the United States and I go to McDonald's in London versus one in Netherlands, they all have different products. It doesn't feel right for me as an American, but you know what? McDonald's knows what sells there because they have the data.
That's
all
very
of the
nice
data.
Example. Very good example. Very nice. Very nice. Awesome. So I think now to start concluding, I would like to bring to the table first choice shipping, because I know you guys are one of the leaders when it comes to global expansion, and you basically can help with all the struggles we've been talking today, which is dealing with all the compliance, everything that has to do with shipping, even logistics. So can you give us a brief introduction how usually you guys help Amazon sellers basically go over all these challenges and make the dream of expanding internationally?
Make the dream. I love that. Yeah. So I've been, and if you know the story of the first sure shipping, it's such an amazing entrepreneurial journey of people saw a problem and people just found a solution, and it kept it very simple. It was never chasing the shiny object in the room. It was always how can we keep our customers first and foremost, and how can we figure out for them? So Pearl Ausch, our COO, and the team, our leadership team that we're a part of, we're going through this process of how do we continue? We First Choice has been around since 2015, so it feels like a long time, but it's honestly not. So maybe even longer, 2010. I'm mixing up dates here, but again, correct me if I'm wrong. I got the dates wrong. I joined a few months ago, but the reason why since the beginning that we've been doing this is that just keeping it simple and straightforward. So it was always a problem of, hey, sellers trying to get into UK. That's where it started out of how can we figure it out? But over time and over every year that you can possibly think of, all the challenges that have been thrown in with, logistics problems from people's containers going up to, what is it, 20,000 plus. It was at its peak, maybe even more for a container of goods. You're stuck on the water for a long time, just trying to figure out how to get inventory from point A to point B simply. And I keep using the word simply because that's all we want to do is take it off your plate through software and our expansion specialist team. So we have the best of both worlds. We have a software and service that allows people to not only just save time because it's easy, it's straightforward ecosystem. You don't have to invest in anything unless, you're growing, which is a good investment to take. Yeah. But every question you might have about what we just covered earlier about the tax, the compliance, the importer of record, returns, that's not a topic that a lot of people cover. Returns just in general. Yeah. What happens? Because you will have returns. It's a guarantee. Yeah, what happens to that? All those kinds of things. We want to do it for people and help people, just navigate those waters and say, we're here to support you, but also save you money instead of going through, a third, like a UPS or FedEx by themselves or DHL. And kind of like a horror story that I hear, and this is why we've had shippers try to do it on their own and go through DHL's website. If you look at it, it doesn't look like they've spoken to any sort of tech agency in a long time. Their software is very clunky. It's not very easy to navigate through. It's something that it's very daunting. But we walk it through for you in our ecosystem. We've had a couple of sellers in the past where even just simply sending in inventory to an Amazon warehouse, they had one icon incorrect. The Incoterms was wrong. They put DDU, which is they said Amazon's paying for my taxes.
Yeah.
Nope, that's not the case.
No.
DDP, which is what, and again, if you have questions about that, just reach out to our team. But DDP is meaning that the seller's paying for the taxes.
That's right.
Their goods got stuck at clearance and at the border. They had to then ship it right back, and it cost them thousands of dollars. And they almost, that was just a daunting mistake that lost them a lot of money and time, and probably a lot of sales, to be quite frankly. So that's why I tell people is you don't want to have to navigate it through your. If you're going internationally, don't do it by yourself. Do it with people who've done it for many, many years, and we're gonna make it easy and simple and straightforward, and learn along the way too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that example is awesome that you brought to the table, because I feel people, don't understand the complexity. I mean, on the high level, it looks like simple, but when you go down, just having a single letter or symbol or anything in your customs and everything, I know that from experience, is a mess. So you definitely want to have the right
that's
people.
Taxes, that's customs. Again, anytime when you start to get other entities and governments involved, again, sales tax, everyone thinks of like Amazon, I have to worry about what their fees are. That's great. But I mean, that's important. But again, once you go globally, you start to get more people involved in more lanes. But any way we can help offload that, burden of both cost, time, and effort, that I think that's a win for every sort of seller or business that's trying to grow globally. That's so for thousands upon thousands of sellers that have used us and will swear about how easy it is. We're excited about the future, making it even easier, and just all the other different opportunities for global growth. That's when people say, oh, For Sure Shipping is a shipping company. We're more than that. We're a global expansion company. So we have all these different resources. We're a niche. We know that. We're not for everyone. If you're just listening to this and you're just starting on Amazon, you could use us for a small parcel delivery and air freight in your samples. Of course you could. But I think most people that are going to listen to this, if you're a seller who's finally ready, you finally figured out the last couple of years, all right, branding into Canada, or we're going to start into Australia, or UAE it seems to be a good market for us. The data is pointing our way. How do we do that?
Awesome.
Give us a call.
Very nice. Very nice. Awesome. So I think just to conclude to this episode, I usually like to ask the final question just to make sure I get all the gold nuggets out of you. And is there anything else you think people should look at when it comes to 2022, 2023 for preparing for global expansion? Any tips, any advice to get ready? Anything that you have in your mind that you'd like to share?
Yeah, a lot of people, when they look at us, I know we specialize in a couple. I'll have a couple things. I know coming up, there's a lot of cool conferences. So if you have questions, or at like the Amazon Accelerate conference, which we're going to be a part of, it's happening in person. It's virtually, it's free. Also, to plug Amazon, I don't work for Amazon, but they're great partners, of course. It's free, so everyone should at least sign up for the Amazon Accelerate conference. If this airs before then, I'll give you a link to kind of even sign up. It's a really cool and easy conference to attend globally too. But other things that I'm talking about, since we specialize in air freight and small parcel, if you're selling a larger item or something that you might not think, oh, I don't want air freight, or I would rather do container, I'll ask you this: do you want to have your only supply chain and your sourcing, your funnel, if you will, only dependent upon large quantities of containers where you have no control over? You can't get it in quickly. It might be a couple weeks. It might be a couple, 2 to 3 weeks at best, but it could be months at a time. Might want to have an emergency blanket solution just in case, whether that's having inventory offsite, which is obviously key on a third-party warehouse, or having a solution like an air freight system in place so you can get your goods anywhere in the world from factory where you might have that inventory or your supplier in 3 to 5 days. So knowing that when Amazon in Q4, especially, we're talking about Q4 coming up, you have to schedule a time when that container is going to come in. Small parcel delivery, you don't have to do that. You just make sure you're telling Amazon, go in and say, I'm shipping this much inventory in. You don't have to schedule an appointment, which a lot of people last year had
I
days
know.
where they were just
It's
leaving containers
so
there.
much headache. I know.
There's a
I
headache.
know.
But with small parcel delivery and what we do, you actually don't have to do that, and you don't have to wait around, and you don't have to worry about it being left there. So it might lengthen time a little bit. It might be 7 days, but you have that background and that blanket. It's worse to run out of inventory
Yeah,
than
I know.
to try to be cheap about it too. So have that emergency kind of break the glass if fire resource,
Very
if you
good.
will. And we like to be that, but yeah, just that's what I would say too. But there's so much out there. Just listen to this podcast. I know there's so many cool people on there. You had mentioned I'll have a podcast, so I just love talking to people and knowing
Yeah.
this space. So
Can't
thanks so
wait to
much.
see you go live.
Yeah, well, I
Okay.
appreciate you having me on today. I know we were going back and forth for a while, so I've
It's a
appreciate
pleasure.
everything that this podcast does, and I think every listener also agrees too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. And now would you like to just to finish share your social media where people can reach you? Any special promotion or link you want to share with first choice shipping or something you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who reaches out to me, I'll even give you my my personal email. You can reach out, and you're a new customer and you want to learn more. You can reach me at ryan@firstchoiceship.com. It's just RYAN at firstchoiceship.com. And you mentioned, Vincenzo or the e-commerce lab podcast. If you're a new customer and you're looking to explain globally, one or two ways I can help you out. If you don't have an NRI number, we can hook you up with a free NRI number, no problem whatsoever. And then if you already have one, then we would make sure we get you 10% off your first shipment at First Choice. So go ahead and just email me directly. Yeah, no problem. And like I said, I'll send Vincenzo once this goes live the link for Accelerate if you happen to want to go. And Amazon's conference is the first time in person that is going to actually feature third-party sellers, companies that are helping third-party sellers. We at First Choice will be there. So
awesome. I'm gonna make sure to add it on the description for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in September. I know it's kind of busy. It's right before Helium 10's Sell and Scale Summit. So I'll be living on the West Coast for 2 weeks. So if you're on the West Coast, let me know.
Awesome, Ryan. So yeah, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your time and definitely looking forward to having you on the next one. Okay.
Absolutely.